I'll just open us up. Father, we come and we come to open your word, and we know that your word is a light unto our path. It guides us where we need to go. It feeds us. It gives us nourishment. It helps us to grow spiritually. It helps us to grow um, to be a mature believer, which is what you want us to be. Father, speak to us tonight through your word. Uh, for those that are hurting, for Harry and Chris's friend, especially tonight, speak to them. Speak to them with peace. Speak to them with comfort. Um, Use the generous heart that Harry and Chris have to speak into their lives and to offer that comfort and peace that only you have. We ask this in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
All righty. So, let's see. I think, John, you were going to lead this week's discussion, correct?
Sure.
That's
right.
what I heard.
Let's have the closing prayer.
Okay.
Oh, what a wonderful
Good one,
sense of
John.
humor.
Good one.
What a wonderful sense of humor. All right, well, this is week 4 in this little series, and that we kind of started this series with why did John write the gospel? Well, he wrote the gospel so that we would believe, and we would believe as described in John 3:16 here, that we would believe in who it is that is our salvation. That Jesus gave his only son, whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. And John tells us in chapter 20, verse 31, that the reason he writes the gospel, he didn't include everything in Jesus' life, but he gave us enough so that we could believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God. And so that's sort of the theme here of what we're doing. And one of the applications, of course, is how do we, as believers, share this message? How do we encourage others to come to faith? How do we plant the seeds? How do we cause growth? How do we help others to see what God has to offer? And so that's hopefully the application that we come out of here. We introduced this pattern a couple of weeks ago that John uses in the signs, a preparation, revelation, test, and believe. And all the signs so far have used this this pattern, and the sign tonight we're actually going to cover in 2 different weeks, and we're going to see the preparation and the test this week, the revelation and the belief next week. So it'll be kind of a twofer, a two-parter. We said that. I don't know what I just did. Okay. Preparation in most cases, introduction of a need. And if you think of the Cana wedding sign, they ran out of wine. There was a need. It has a spiritual significance, but there's also a physical significance. They ran out of wine. They needed help. And then the royal official's child was sick. There was a need, and the royal official exhausted everything he could do, and he was open to Jesus' healing hand. And then there was the man who was lame, who was there for 38 years, and he couldn't get in the pool when the water stirred, and he was desperate and hopeless. And so he was prepared when Jesus asked him, do you want to get well? Yes, I want to get well. I can't do it on my own. He was ready to hear what Jesus had to say. And we're going to see the same pattern here this week as well. So preparation is usually what conditions our heart to receive revelation. So in order to receive the revelation, oftentimes we have to understand something about ourselves, and we have to be prepared to hear what Jesus has to say. Think about your own life. And I know some of you have talked about this, so just jump in there. What was your preparation when Jesus finally said, I'm here at the door and I'm knocking, let me in? What was prepared in your life to allow you to open that door and receive what he had to offer you?
Well,
Okay, I'll jump
similar.
in. Yeah,
Okay,
go ahead.
go ahead.
Cindy.
No, you go ahead,
No,
Lori.
okay. I was going to say, I had gone through, I did like 12 weeks of Jewish knowledge, learning about Judaism when I got to the point where it was like, okay, I was faced with Jesus. So my preparation was this learning, which is my natural venue anyway, the learning all about Judaism and what it meant to be Jewish and the revelation about Jesus, who Jesus really was to me and what he was showing me that, this is important. I need to decide who I'm going to accept and who I'm going to follow.
And I'm gonna, this is kind of Randy's story too, but for our daughter Kelly, I think sometimes in life you aspire to have certain things and you get those things and you still feel empty, and you have more friends and you still feel empty, and you do more and more and you still feel empty. And for her, that is how she was ready to receive Jesus, because she knew there was something missing still.
I mean, for me, it's kind of simple. My whole, I tried to do everything my way and my whole world kept crashing, more and more, and nothing seemed to work out, and things just got worse and worse and worse until finally it was like, all right, God, it's your turn. Let's do it your way and see what happens. And then his way was better. So, I mean, he was real, his way was better, and I'd be a fool to try it my way again.
I think it's just that we just have to accept, what he has for us.
Yeah.
And have him with you all the time. He's always there with you.
Yeah, you almost have. Yeah, go ahead, Margaret. I'm sorry.
Well, just, we feel we need his presence all the time to deal with daily things that happen.
Yeah.
We just need him there.
Yeah, and I think it's understanding that need, having a self-awareness of saying, I don't understand this whole thing about God that kind of Lori alluded to. I don't have satisfaction in life with all the world doesn't offer the satisfaction that I'm looking for. I tried my own way, that hasn't worked. I have a need. I have a need for something bigger than myself. And I think for most people, you almost have to get to that point before the message of the gospel really resonates. If you think of the first century people that heard the gospel, will have Roman oppression. They are one loaf of bread away from starvation most of the time. They life and death with disease and weather and everything else is pretty immediate. And I think you could see in that culture that having someone who can save the day, even in the physical sense, is so attractive. And they're prepared for that because they have, life and death is a daily thing for them. Children die in childbirth, mothers die in childbirth, on and on and on and on. And I think this is one of the clues about this little pattern that John has, is when we share the gospel, I think what we need to look for or be sensitive to is not the apologetic to use, but is what's that person's heart? What has God already prepared them to hear? And then speak to what that need is. And I think that may be something that is something we can pull out of this as we think through these signs. How does Jesus pull out of the interviews that he has with people to help them understand that he has something to offer them which meets their need? So that's one of the things I want to try to look for. The second thing to look for is the revelation that happens, and it's not just showing the miracle although Jesus does show that. It's proof of who he is, but that's not what we need. It's revealing who he is. He is the Messiah. He is the Son of God. He is the one through whom we have eternal life. And we have to understand that it's him, the person, not the work that gets us, that satisfies the need that we have. So what does revelation achieve? Think about how God has spoken with you in your life. What does revelation achieve in your life? All right, God's got a lot of work to do with this group.
I was going to say, I don't want to keep answering, but I mean, like the reality that he's there and the security that I can rely and depend on the next time I have to go through something. It's
I think it opens your eyes and draws you closer to Christ. Yes.
I think
The more you see who he is,
Right.
I think once it's revealed to you too, it changes the way your whole lifestyle. It changes the way you live.
yeah.
I
So,
think
go ahead.
it makes you a hunger for doing what he wants you to do.
Yeah. You have the desire to be like Christ. Yeah. In the stories we've shown so far, what has been the result of revelation in the stories? A couple of them says it specifically, others you kind of have to imply it, but what has Jesus revealing who he is, what has that done? What has it achieved?
Cause people to believe in him.
Yeah. So one result is true belief. And who in the stories we've read so far has really shown true belief?
The lame man at the pool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Nicodemus, I think too.
I think Nicodemus struggled, but I think he got there. Yeah.
The
servants.
Samaritan at the well, the lady at the well.
Yeah, which we read this week too. Yeah. She reaches that point.
The
Not only
soldier
that-
who asked him to heal the daughter.
Yeah,
The
the
healing of the
royal
daughter.
official. Yeah, he believed because he accepted Jesus' authority and he went. He didn't require a sign. He didn't require proof. He accepted Jesus for who he was, and then it's confirmed on the way back. Yeah, excellent.
Many others also believed as a point of the works that they saw Jesus perform.
Right. Yeah, the disciples would be in this group. At Cana, they were the ones that were identified as the true believers, and the disciples believed in who Jesus was. So one of the results of revelation is true belief. One of the other results is a surface belief. And just think through your general Bible knowledge, those that believed in Jesus initially, but when going got tough, the weak got going, right? Many of his followers fell away. Some of his teachings were too hard for them. Jesus wasn't who they thought he was going to be. And so even though Jesus revealed, sometimes it's just a surface level belief. Sometimes it's not really that deep, take root kind of belief. Sometimes it's a tenuous belief. So I believe, but I'm just overcome by circumstances, and it's really hard because of my circumstances. And I'm thinking of the crowds in this case that Palm Sunday welcomed him as the Messiah. A week, 5 days later, crucify him. They were pulled away from that belief. They were turned because of what was said. And then the fourth one is sometimes it's unbelief, and this would be the Pharisees and the Jewish leaders. They saw everything that these others saw. Jesus revealed to them exactly what he revealed to the others, but they would not believe. They refused to believe. And the interesting thing about this is exactly the parable of the four soils, right? Some fell on rocky soil, some fell on the thorns, some fell on good soil, and some on shallow soil and burnt up when the sun came out. And so even though God reveals himself, Jesus reveals himself to each of us, only the true believers really bear fruit. The rest of them don't make it. And so this is one of the things that we'll see in these stories as well, is that there's belief, but it's not always that true belief. And we'll see that in the one tonight. This is another long introduction. The other thing that John does is he layers 7 specific revelations that Jesus makes. He declares about himself in the gospel, and these are the 7. I am the bread of life. I am the light of the world. I'm the door of the sheep. I'm the good shepherd. I'm the resurrection and the life. I'm the way, the truth, and the life. And I'm the true vine. And we actually will hit 2 of these within the signs. So John's weaving these together, and you'll see that the revelation and the signs are kind of intertwined a little bit as he stretches out the gospel. So you'll see that as Jesus reveals himself, some believe on a surface level, some kind of believe, some don't believe at all, even though he's revealing himself through these 7 signs. So we'll be watching for those too as we read. And we'll brush up on that first one. Yeah, I said that too. And the whole purpose of this is to get us to understand who Jesus is and what he's accomplished for us. Okay, enough of an introduction. Okay, let me start with the lookers.
Sometime after this, Jesus crossed to the far shore of the Sea of Galilee. That is the Sea of Tiberias. And a great crowd of people followed him because they saw the signs he had performed by healing the sick. Then Jesus went up on a mountainside and sat down with his disciples. The Jewish Passover feast was near.
All right, and then Cindy, if you do this one.
When Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming toward him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. Philip answered him, "It would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite."
And then John, if you would read this one, please.
Another of his disciples, and Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. But how far will they go among so many?
Okay, and then Sean, if you would.
Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." There was plenty of grass in that place, and they sat down. About 5,000 men were there. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish.
Okay, and then Margaret, this is verse 12 and 13 of chapter 6.
When they were filled, he said to his disciples, "Gather up the leftover fragments so that nothing will be lost." So they gathered them up and filled 12 baskets with fragments from the 5 barley loaves, which were left over by those who had eaten.
Thank you. And then Lori, if you'd finish it up.
And after the people saw the sign Jesus performed, they began to say, "Surely this is the prophet who is to come into the world." Jesus, knowing that they intended to come and make him king by force, withdrew again to a mountain by himself.
Okay. So what was the sign? That's the first question. What is the sign that John presents?
Jesus feeding all the people with 5 loaves and 2 fish.
Yeah. And what in this sign helps us to believe?
Jesus provides.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus provides.
More than we can imagine.
Yeah. That's why when it's not just that they didn't go away hungry; they went away full.
Full.
Yeah, and they went away with extra. Yeah. Spiritually, that's significant. That's part of the thing that comes out of here. And then who's reached the conclusion of belief here?
All of the people there.
Disciples.
Disciples.
Okay. That's pretty much everybody that's there. Did they all believe with the true belief, or were some of them believe in a shallow way, some of them believe in a tenuous way, or some of them not at all?
All of the above.
Yeah, we'll get next week. We'll actually dissect that a little bit. But yeah, there were some true believers, but there's also some of the others as well. All right, so here's our background. We were to read John 4, which was the story of the woman at the well. Very familiar story. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows kind of what happened there. The woman saw Jesus as the solution to what problem? To kind of think through what the dialogue was with her. What did she hope Jesus would do for her?
Restore her to the public.
Okay. And what in the story gets you to that?
Yeah, she had 4 different husbands, and she was also living with a man now out of wedlock, and she was probably an outcast.
Yeah, that's why she's there in the middle of the day. She's not there in the cool of the morning like all the other women. The other women probably shamed her. So she's isolated, she's alone, she's not integrated into the society. And how is Jesus going to help her in that condition?
He's going to give her the living water.
Yes, there it is. He talked about a living water, and she thought, well, if I had that water, I wouldn't have to come out here. I wouldn't have to show my face and be shamed. I wouldn't have to come out here in the heat of the day. That's what I want. She's looking about her world problem that she has, her societal problem, her personal problem that she has. So what does Jesus offer? Jesus offered the woman a solution to what problem? What problem is he solving for her? What does he offer?
Forgiveness of her sins.
Forgiveness for her lifestyle, maybe?
He doesn't actually say forget. He doesn't actually say I'll forgive her. But
Eternal
he does.
life.
Sorry?
Eternal life.
Yeah, it's essentially what she's offering. He says, I have this living water that you will never thirst. The hunger that you have, the thirstiness you have for a normal life, a complete life, a life of belonging, a life where you're not shamed, the things that you're desperate for, I have a solution to that problem. I have the living water. But it's not because you won't have to come to the well. It's because I'm going to make you a new person. I offer this as a way for you. I can solve your problem, but in a much deeper level than just avoiding the shame. I'm actually going to make you someone that will have an impact. And if you know the story, she does have an impact. So how does Jesus reveal himself to that woman?
He tells her that he's the Messiah.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And he tells her her life history.
Right. So I know who you are, and I know what your needs are. Well, the Lefferts have nailed this one. And and she asks, well, the Messiah will come and explain all of this to us. And he says, I am the Messiah. He reveals himself right to her. And so she has this encounter with Jesus. Jesus fully reveals himself. She's prepared with her need, and then Jesus can meet that need. And then does she believe in the John 3:16 says?
Yes, I think she does.
Absolutely. And what does she do? What does she do immediately after that?
Goes to the village and tells everyone.
Right. She declares it. She's a first evangelist here. She goes out and tells others about who Jesus is. And one of the questions in there talks about the harvest, because Jesus says, when the disciples finally come and see what's happening, he says, open your eyes. The fields are white with harvest. Pray for workers. The harvest is because of the seeds that she plants in declaring it. And the leaders of the village come out. They hear Jesus. They also believe. And then when you get to Acts 8, the apostles come and the Spirit is poured out on the Samaritans, just like it is with the Jews. And that harvest now is ripe for the picking. And so this same theme of having a need, seeing it in a physical sense, Jesus offering what solution he does have is the same lesson in feeding the 5,000. And so that's why I kind of pair those together. Okay, so we'll go on from there. Now let's do this verse by verse. And I think I left off with Margaret, so this would be Lori.
Lori read.
No,
I read last.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Harry or Chris then?
I haven't read yet. I think it's my turn.
Oh, Randy.
It's
Okay.
the same verse.
Yeah, poor Margaret already did once. That's not fair, you know. So sometime after this, Jesus crossed to the far shore of the Sea of Galilee. This has already been read.
Yeah, we're reading it verse by verse now.
I'll read it again. Okay.
Yeah.
And a great crowd of people followed him because they saw the signs he had performed by healing the sick. Then Jesus went up on a mountainside and sat down with the disciples. The Jewish Passover festival was near.
Okay, like all of these signs, John sort of sets the scene. Think of this as a vignette that John provides to get a look at these interviews with people, with Jesus, how they're prepared, how Jesus will test them, how he reveals himself, and how they either come to believe or not. All of these are sort of little scenes, and he paints the scene. So in what ways does he paint the scene for us?
He tells them where they're at exactly.
Yeah. There's a geographical piece to that. And if you, I should have had a map here, but if you think of the Sea of Galilee, it kind of looks like a finger. And one side is Capernaum and Nazareth, and the Galilee's on that side. So the other side is not actually opposite, but it's really kind of catty corner to the top of the finger. And that's where he goes. That's across the lake, or across the Sea of Galilee. So that's where he is. What else does he prepare or set the scene for?
There was a great crowd of people.
Okay, why are they there?
Passover.
Well, they had seen him perform the healing of the sick, so they're coming with expectations.
There you go. And what do you suppose some of those expectations are?
Probably.
Gonna heal some more.
Yeah, we're going to see some magic. Yeah, they're not prepared for this particular miracle, but they're saying he's healed sick. He's met people's needs. I have a foot that's infected. Maybe he'll heal that. I have a child who's demon possessed. Maybe he can take care of that. They are following him because he has shown, power to heal. They're attracted to him. Go ahead.
They have a need, physical need.
Yeah. They likely do, or they know someone that does, and they want to see that too. It's like it's miraculous. They want to see something miraculous. What else do you see?
On a broader scale, weren't they also at this particular point, all of them had a very, very rough life, and they'd been kind of expecting the Messiah to come at some point.
Right.
And maybe some of these folks thought, finally, he's here. My life is going to get better, even if I'm not ill or hurt or anything like that. Just life is going to get better for us.
Right. We have somebody here that's going to do something about our condition. Exactly. Yeah. So John paints this scene, and you've got this set up. They're on the other side of the lake. And Jesus goes up to the mountainside and sat down. Why does Jesus sit down? I figured Lori would jump on this one, but she ran away.
He's tired.
No. Why
It'd
does
be like John. He's tired.
why does Jesus sit down?
He wants to be on their level.
No, because it's like an amphitheater where he's like talking down to them so they can all hear him.
Yeah. Part of it is so that all of them can hear him. The other is the teacher sits, the students stand. It's just the opposite of education today. It's one of the many things wrong with education today, right? I'm talking to a couple
Yeah,
of teachers.
exactly. We stand all day long.
That's right. That's right. But in this day and age, the teacher sat and everyone else stood. And they heard, they listened, they interacted. But it's a place of authority. It's a place of honor. They're the sitting one. And so Jesus sits there. We talked about that. Is the Passover feast just a factoid? Well, we've read the sign, so we know what's going to happen. So is the Passover feast just a factoid? Or does it have a meaning in this story?
It's got to have a meaning.
All right, we'll get to the meaning. John doesn't remember. John's a portrait. Every word, every phrase is a brushstroke, has meaning. And historically that's what's happening, but John uses that. He points that out. He could have ignored that if it was the Festival of Tents. But no, this is the Passover, and this fits in this thing, and we'll see why here in a minute. All right, so let's see, Randy, and I think I'm at Leanne.
When Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming toward him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do.
So in our preparation revelation test belief pattern that we're looking for, which one's at play here?
Test.
Yeah, right. Yay!
Yay!
Yeah. So what is the test? What is the test for Philip?
The test is you've already seen me provide wine for an entire wedding. You think I can't handle this?
Good.
Yeah.
The test is to show that Jesus is God and that he can do anything. He doesn't have to have man-made supplies. He can do it himself.
Yeah. What do you suppose Jesus is trying to get Philip to understand?
That he's God.
Yeah. That I am not limited by the physical conditions of this world. I can meet the need because I'm God. I have that ability to meet the need.
I think he's asking also, do you truly believe that I am who I say I am?
Yeah. You've said it.
Yeah.
You've said it. Do you really think that way? Yeah. And so what answer does he already have? And I think somebody mentioned a couple of these things with the wine, right? That's one answer. He's already seen it. Okay. And let's see, I think, did Harry or Chris, did I get to you or did you?
No, not yet.
All right, well, you get the good one then.
Okay. Philip answered him, "It would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite."
Kind of thinking, maybe Philip was an accountant or, some sort of a bookkeeper. And he's saying, well, let's see, let me figure out how many people are here. I do a quick estimate. There's 5,000 men, so maybe that's 10,000 people. And let's see, each one have a bite. A loaf of bread costs this. How much, he's trying to process what will it take to actually make this happen. Let's see, the McDonald's is 3 miles away. A train leaves at Chicago at 20 miles an hour. He's trying to solve the problem. So what does Philip rely on? Kind of gave that away to answer the test.
What a normal person would say.
Right.
Yeah.
His own knowledge.
Exactly. What's in my power to solve? What's in my power to solve is, well, I'd have to have money and I'd have to have some way to bring it here and I'd have to have a wagon to carry it all. I mean, he's thinking through, how would I solve the problem? But he does that. Does he actually answer Jesus' question? The question was, where shall we buy bread from these people to eat? The answer is, it would take half a year's wages to buy enough bread, even for one bite. Does he answer the question?
More or less.
Kind of indirectly, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, give Philip a little, I mean, he's trying to follow the playbook here and he's answering the question, sort of. He's trying to answer the question as best he can. And then, so what will Jesus reveal specifically to Philip?
That he can.
Yeah. The question
Rely
is,
on him and not
right,
human,
right,
being a human.
right, right. The question is, where will you buy enough? And the answer that he's going to reveal is, you're not going to buy enough. I will be the
Yeah.
source of that need. I will fulfill that need. I will take care of that. I am the one who will solve this problem. And he's very much trying to get in. I think for Philip to understand, this is not a logistics problem. This is a spiritual problem. Later in this chapter, Jesus will declare, I am the bread of life. And so how does this interaction help us to see what Jesus reveals in that declaration?
That we can't do it on our own. We need Jesus to be the bread.
I'll tell you what, the Lefferts
Yeah,
are on
oh,
fire
bye.
tonight.
We can't go out and buy our bread of life, our life. We need
Right.
Jesus.
We can't buy it.
No.
Exactly right.
Jesus can provide all that we need.
Right. I am the bread of life. You don't need to buy it. I am it. And that's what he declares. And we'll actually pull that out next week, but that's where we're kind of headed here. All right. So let's go to the next little part of this, the next little interview of this. And I think I'm back to the lookers on this one.
Another of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. But how far will they go among so many?
So is Andrew trying to answer the test question?
He's thinking about it.
He's trying to help provide an answer.
Yeah, he's trying to help provide. Well, because Philip struck out. Andrew's right there, right? Philip struck out. He couldn't. He said, "Well, look, we take half your wages. We don't have that. We only have 3 shillings here. We don't have enough. We can't meet that need." And Andrew's trying to answer the question. Well, we have this.
Yeah, I think Andrew's kind of hopeful. He's probably giving it back to Jesus, going, "Okay, Jesus, this is what we have. How are you gonna make it? How are you gonna make it happen?"
Yeah. Yeah. How confident is he in his answer?
I don't think he's too confident.
No, not at all. No.
No.
But how far will that go? I mean, this is what we have, but how far will that go? I'm really no better than Philip here. I don't have a half a year's wages, and we just don't have enough. We just don't have what it takes. What about the boy? How does he answer the test?
He's willing to give up all he has.
Right. And how is he willing to give it up?
He's giving it to Jesus.
Yeah. This is all I have. I don't know what you'll do with it. I don't know how you'll meet the need, but this is all I have. And I give you all I have. And in these 3 little tests, you really get to see how this progression of belief goes. And when Jesus says, come to me as a child, I think part of that is this childlike innocence of, I have this. I can share this. I can help here.
And of all these people, he's the only one that had any food. He was willing to give it up at least.
Yeah. He's the only one of the crowd that's willing to give it up anyway. But he does. He says, I don't know how this will solve the problem, but you have all I have to offer. And so that's part of the spiritual question of when we come to faith. It's not me, but it's you. It's you're the one that's going to solve the problem. Okay, next verse. This is I think I'm just Cindy again.
Jesus said, have the people sit down. There was plenty of grass in that place, and they sat down. About 5,000 men were there. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish.
All right. So there's some really cool things in here. 3 on this slide, 3 on the next slide, that John reveals about Jesus. So when he says Jesus then took the loaves, what does that reveal about Jesus? And think of it in terms of a spiritual thing. This is, of course, a physical thing that's happening, but think of it in terms of spiritual. What does
Bread
take
of
the
life.
loaves? Sorry?
Bread of life.
Okay, so Jesus takes the loaves from the boy. So what does that reveal about who he is?
He wanted to use the boy. He could have done it himself, but he wanted to involve a person in the solution. And since the boy was willing to give of himself, Jesus was willing to take the gifts that the boy had, the talents that the boy had, and use those.
All right, and so that's the lesson for us. I have a skill in this area, and you have a skill in that area, and she has a skill over here. But if that's offered to Jesus, what does Jesus do with it?
Multiplies it.
Yeah, he accepts it.
He
Thank
gives
you
it away.
Yeah,
He gives it away. You know, it's a symbolism of the Passover. This is my body shared with you.
Right, right.
The bread is the body that shares with everyone.
Yeah. So he's willing to take whatever we offer. And when we offer completely, he's able to multiply it because he does it in this story. This is the illustration of this. Here's the next one. Next, he gives thanks. So what does that reveal about Jesus?
Being humble.
Yeah. He always gives thanks to the Father.
Right.
He loves his Father.
Yeah. It's an example for us, right? In whatever we're given, whatever we're offered, there's a thankfulness there. There's a gratitude. Maybe he's thankful that this boy has the heart of a true believer. I mean, because the loaves is, he can do the loaves himself, right? But the fact that someone comes and offers himself, I think he gives thanks. Jesus and the Father have several dialogues we get later in the last part of chapter 6. I don't think we actually read it. Oh gosh, the train just left the station.
In other words, he forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
It'll come back to me.
I didn't know you were that old yet, Tim.
Well, not just that forgetful. It may or may not come back to me. Read the rest of chapter 6, you'll get it. It's Jesus says, "I will not lose any of these that you've given me." And so there's a thankfulness of you've given me, you've offered me something, you've given me those true believers, and I will not lose any of them. I will hold on to them. And I think that was the point I was trying to get out of that, was that.
And he gives you back even more than what you were for, and he's giving you even more.
Even more. Yeah. You give it all, and you're going to get more than that return. The cast your bread upon the water kind of thing. One more. What about the distribution of the food?
Gave to all as much as they needed and much as they wanted.
Right. So he's not restrictive at all. When grace is given, grace is poured out. And I'm sure some people in the crowd were really good people and some people in the crowd weren't. But they all were fed. And they all had as much as they wanted. All right. Next verse. This is John.
When they had all had enough to eat, he said to his disciples, "Gather the pieces that are left over, that nothing be wasted." So they gathered them and filled 12 baskets with the pieces of the 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten.
Now, one little thing, that some people talk about this and say, well, once the boys started this, everybody shared the food, and what do you know, there was enough. Well, they didn't collect any other kinds of bread. They only collected the barley bread. So I don't think that's the way it goes. But anyway, that's an aside. Again, John reveals several things about Jesus in this a couple verses. What does all had enough reveal?
That everyone's need was filled.
Yeah. His grace is sufficient for everyone.
as you said, as all types of soil were there.
Right.
And they were all fed.
Yeah. Yeah.
He certainly isn't selfish.
No, he wasn't selfish, and he wasn't restrictive. It wasn't only the, those that tithed or those that, did whatever. No, everybody there, everybody that listened, everybody that came to hear him, even though the motives weren't always 100%, he still was gracious to all of them. Okay. What does gather the leftovers reveal?
There was more than enough.
More than enough. So everybody was full. Everybody had plenty, and they're still left over. His grace is more than sufficient. I believe that's a verse in the Bible too, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You also said that he doesn't leave anything behind. He doesn't waste anything.
Right.
And so that's
okay. There's two stories about feeding. One is this one of the 5,000 where there's 12 baskets, and that's in all four Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And then there's another story of 4,000 with 7 baskets, and that's only in Mark and Matthew and Mark. John's selective, so we know he chose this one, and probably because of the interactions with Philip and Andrew, the boy, and what we'll cover next week. But I found it interesting that who gathers the leftovers? Who does the gathering?
It's the disciples.
Yeah, how many of those were there?
12.
How many baskets were filled?
12.
Oh,
Do you think they each carried a basket as a reminder of what happened here? It works out pretty well. The numbers work out pretty well for that, right?
Isn't there a little bit of symbolism too that the disciples are supposed to pick up and take care of the people, like when Jesus is gone?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot with the 12, just the number 12 that you can fill in there. Yeah, I just love the idea that each of them pick up a basket. Each of them have clear evidence in their hand. Each of them have this lesson as a physical reminder of what happened here. That a boy came with all he had, and Jesus met everyone's need with abundance, and they're holding the result of Jesus meeting that need as a reminder to them. Reminders are important. The Jews had the festivals, and Passover is one of those. We have reminders. We have the Lord's Supper, the Lord's table, the communion every week as a reminder of this kind of thing, of what God has done. And they're holding the basket and going, I remember how this happened. There were only 5 little loaves there and 2 little fish. And there were a lot of people. And God met that need. What about when I have a problem? I have a basket of bread, leftover bread here to remind me about what power this man has, of how he can provide, of how he can meet my need. I have this reminder. It's a basket full of leftovers for 5,000 people. I just think that's a powerful image that John keeps in there. And whether it's, the 12 tribes, whether it represents that, other things can probably be pulled out of here. But the fact that each of them gather and each of them have a basket, each of them have a reminder, says, I am who you're looking for. I am the Messiah. I am the Son of God. Believe in me. You have evidence here in this basket. Okay. Randy.
But what is he telling us to do in today's world?
That's an excellent question. So what would be the lesson that you would pull out of that?
That what we could share can be multiplied?
Yeah.
Give everything to him and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
can't outgive Jesus.
Right.
offer what you have and allow him to take care of the rest of the details.
I think that's what we do as a church. Basically, when you think about the offering, we all give what we can afford to give, but collectively we have plenty to do what we need to do, for the kingdom.
Yeah. When everybody shares,
Yeah.
when everybody is generous, when everybody offers what they can, whether that's a material thing or a talent you guys have, when that's offered, it is multiplied. It does have an impact. It does feed the body. It does, serve the community. All of those things. And yeah, we could all do more. I think all of us in this room could say, yeah, I could do more. Okay. I think this was yours, Randy.
Okay. After the people saw the sign Jesus performed, they began to say, surely this is the prophet who has come into the world. Jesus, knowing that they intended to come and make him king by force, withdrew again to a mountain by himself. So he was starting to feel the pressure. I felt like when I read this, that okay, he needed to get back up in the mountain by himself again and kind of reassess what all had happened.
Yeah, we talked about the kind of the four soils, the four types of belief. What type of belief do you think this one is? Are these the true believers?
No.
No, they're somewhere less than that because they're looking for their solution to their problem, not his solution to their problem. Yeah, so he asked that. And what do they desire?
Immediate
want-
gratification.
Well, they want the prophecy fulfilled, and they think it needs to be fulfilled by a king coming in to take over. And so they figured out, like you said, they figured out their way that the prophecies get fulfilled, and they don't understand. They don't understand yet.
Yeah,
they're calling him a prophet, not the Son of God, but a prophet.
Right.
And they want to make him a king.
Yeah.
On earth, earthly.
David.
Yeah.
I want you to restore the greatness of Israel. Moses talked about one who will come after. That's the prophet. And they want a king like David that comes in and restores things so that we are in right relationship with God. Because when David was king and Israel conquered all of his enemies, that's what they're looking for, right?
They're not looking for a savior, no, or the Messiah.
Right.
They're not looking for the spiritual redemption. They're not looking for the spiritual kingdom. They're not looking for the spiritual solution to their problem. They're thinking, if Israel, the nation, can just be like it was in David's time, where our enemies feared us and they didn't prey on us, and we were safe and secure, and we went to the temple and we worshiped God. If we can get back to that, boy, that's salvation. And I think Jesus is saying that's not what salvation is.
Right.
That's not what salvation is. We'll pull that up next week. What Jesus offered. He says, I'm the bread of life. So how does that revelation that he's the bread of life meet their desire?
It doesn't.
It does. Because their true desire is a spiritual one. They think that if they get the physical right, the spiritual will follow. And Jesus says, no. You got to get the spiritual right. And the physical will follow. I think it's the order that happens there. Hey, we'll pull that in again next week. All right. Oh, good. Timing is not too bad here. So Jesus sets up the condition for his first revelation. I am the bread of life. First of all, there's an attraction. What was the attraction here?
Food.
Yeah, well, food is one of them, but also, why was the big crowd gathered?
Healing. Heal.
Yeah, they've seen miracles. They've seen his power. So there is an attraction there. Then there's scarcity. And how'd the scarcity come about?
Not enough food.
Not enough food. I think it's Matthew or Luke, one of them that tells this story, says he taught for 3 days. And so they had 3 days without food. So they basically were fasting, listening to him. And so they were hungry. So they're not just, hey, we just had breakfast. I'll have a bite of bread. No, they were hungry. So there's a scarcity here. And then this really comes to Philip and Andrew's question. There's an impossibility here. They have a physical situation that is not solvable in our own power. And then you have an intercession. Jesus takes what we have to offer and multiplies it. And then finally you have satisfaction, when all had enough to eat and there was left over. And so I think this little story talks about, or it illustrates what happens to us spiritually. We might be attracted to Jesus because, the Beatitudes are beautiful language to hear. Judge no one is very attractive to people, especially people that don't want to be judged. But we soon reach a point where we understand we have a spiritual scarcity and an impossibility to solve our problem. That's part of the need that has to be present, the preparation that has to be present. And then when Jesus reveals himself and says, I can solve your scarcity and your impossibility problem, and I can satisfy you completely, that's when I think you can get to a point of true belief. And I think that's the spiritual conditions and the spiritual results of belief. Go ahead, John. Or whoever was speaking.
It wasn't me.
Okay. Or your little box is highlighted. But as we think about interacting with our world and bringing people to Jesus and identifying someone who needs to hear the gospel, these are the kinds of things I think we need to look for. What would attract them to a Christian life? What's missing in their life? What need do they have? How can I, as the hands, feet, and heart of Jesus, intercede and introduce them to Jesus so that Jesus, through the Spirit's action, can bring full satisfaction to their life? Not just an apologetic or a clever argument, but how can I see a need that someone has and attract them to Jesus and show them how Jesus can intercede for them.
Share with them what he's done in your life.
Yeah. And this is where, I'm glad you said that, Patty, because this is where one of the emphases, I guess, what we're trying to do is getting people comfortable sharing their testimony. Because if you're comfortable with saying, I had a need, I couldn't solve it, I met Jesus, and he satisfied me completely. If that's true about your belief in him, then that ought to be an easy share. And it doesn't rely on some apologetic argument or some logical argument to convince. It's just a heartfelt, I felt I didn't belong, and then I met Jesus. I felt I wasn't satisfied with anything, and then I met Jesus. I was going the wrong way. I knew I was going the wrong way, and Jesus turned my life around. Those type of testimonies, I think, have real power. And I think we as mature believers need to be more comfortable. I know for me personally, I need to be more comfortable in sharing that. I need to be looking for opportunities to share that. I need to say, that person has a scarcity and impossibility in his life that only Jesus can fill. I need to share with them what Jesus has done for me.
I had a lady that when I had my shop, I had a lady that come in there, and a lot of women come in, we would just talk sometimes, but I had one, she was having a pretty rough day, and she said, I just don't feel like I have many friends. So that just kind of opened that door of, I have a friend in Jesus, and you could have that too. Yeah. And he's the best friend you could have.
Yeah.
So I was able to share my faith with her. So.
Great example. Yeah. Of just being sensitive to other people. Any other closing thoughts? All right, well, let me just close in a quick word here and